So, let's get started. I'm delighted to introduce the first session, where we're going to gain a really unique perspective from Jacqueline Bierhorst, President of WorldDAB. She'll be reflecting on her first year in the role. Please give a very warm welcome to Jacqueline.
Good morning, everybody. I will feel my muscles for the coming days after yesterday, where I won a broom. So it was a lovely night, and I enjoyed it so much, and I hope you did too. First, let me welcome all of you in the room today, here in WorldDAB Summit 24 in beautiful Zagreb. So I'm going to try Dobro jutro I dobro došli u Zagreb. And good morning and welcome to Zagreb. And also welcome to those of you watching these events snips online afterwards. It has been 12 months since I was honored to accept the presidency from my dear friend Patrick Hannon at our summit in Munich last year. And I hope I've done him proud in my first year in this role. In this time, I've represented WorldDAB at many events across Europe, Asia, not yet in Africa, while I'm pleased to have taken part in several webinars. I've not yet got there, but perhaps I will in 25. Most of all, I met many people, all of them committed and aware of the importance of digital broadcast radio, and on many different stages of their DAB+ journey. And meeting everyone is what makes my work so interesting. In these meetings, we've listened, learned, and supported many countries, organizations, and companies to develop and progress with DAB+. And we come together today to celebrate this progress and to share around the world. I talk at events about how DAB can energize radio, growing the cake instead of thinner slices. And that energy is reflected in our own growth. And now the challenge is for us to maintain that momentum and to grow further. And I'd like to highlight just a few of the amazing developments in the last 12 months. First, the new automatic safety alert ASA standard, which was successfully tested in Germany in September. This will save lives. With the recent terrible floods in Spain and elsewhere, we've seen how urgent and necessary this is, this development. And it's forward-looking, the biggest update to DAB standards for many years. And I'm looking forward to hear more about this a brilliant innovation from Karsten Zorger and Lindsay Cornell this afternoon. I want to place on record my thanks. I don't know where you are, Lindsay, for your hard work, but also Karsten and everybody involved on driving this project forward. Thank you very much. Alongside this, we see continued progress in Europe. In new markets, such as Spain, where DAB+ is now on air in 13 Spanish cities and more to come. Thank you, Javier, for your tireless enthusiasm. Yeah, I always get your apps. And we'll hear from him later. And in Luxembourg, which has advertised a license for its first multiplex. We're happy with that. It took a little while. In rapidly growing markets as France, with now over 60% coverage of the mainland, we'll get an update from Hervé Godechot shortly on the regulator's plans for transition to a digital market by 2033 already. And we all know how quick time goes. It's a blink of an eye. And in Austria, in June, a new national multiplex launched, carrying 14 stations, as well as 5 new regional muxes. In established markets, such as the UK, where the latest audience research shows DAB now taking nearly 2/3 of in-car listening. And the biggest commercial networks are launching many new digital brand extensions, alongside the rollout of dozens of new, smaller multiplexes. To the east of Europe, Estonia, where trials continue, and we expect to hear news of new licenses from there soon. And in Czechia, where new commercial multiplexes are rolling out, and Slovenia, when 2 further national multiplex licenses have recently been awarded. And here in Croatia, where a new call for stations to join national and regional MUXes has just been launched, and rollout continues with new sites being launched to bring even better coverage of highways. And we know you've also invested in big pre-Christmas marketing campaigns to increase the awareness of DAB+, which is so important. Now in Africa, we are delighted that Ghana is now moving from trials to advertise a license for its first permanent DAB+ multiplex. In June this year, Senegal launched its DAB+ pilot with 32 stations broadcasting across 2 multiplexes from Dakar. And there's a pilot project in Uganda covering Greater Kampala with interest from several private network operators. We're also seeing great interest from the Southern African Development Community and their communications regulator Authority of Southern Africa, who are working with us on a series of webinars and reports, which will lead to roadmap for approval by the SADC General Assembly next March. In the Middle East and North African region, the Saudi Broadcasting Authority has installed new DAB+ transmitters in key city sites and extended coverage along the critical Riyadh to Abha highway, so also highways there. And they join Kuwait, Qatar and Tunisia, already on air. We're not ready yet. It's going to be longer and longer. Across Asia Pacific, we were recently in Indonesia, where DAB+ has been officially adopted. The regulator, Kominfo, is now well advanced on its licensing policy. The public broadcaster RRI is officially tasked with rolling out DAB+ infrastructure, and we're working to support them. We're delighted that the regulator in Thailand, NBTC, published a report on the successful DAB+ trial and is now consulting on a frequency plan and specifications for transmitters and receivers. And in Australia, we know the market is very well established. ABC and SBS launched DAB+ coverage in the Gold Coast in May, and audiences are growing, including, amongst others, younger listeners. If we look forward to the next 12 months, we'll see ASA receivers reaching the market. We can see time where this feature becomes mandatory in receivers. And this will secure radio's continued role in essential civil defense resilience infrastructure, protecting citizens and saving lives in the digital future. In Switzerland, the public broadcaster SRG SSR will switch off its FM transmitters at the end of this year. So it's in a month's time to save money on transmission. We will hear more about that from Adriano later. And in the German state Schleswig-Holstein, private and public stations have agreed with the state government and the state media authority to gradually switch to digital by 2031. Next year, 4 stations will migrate completely from FM to DAB+, and further stations will then follow, as we will hear from their minister Schröter. So, we're seeing real progress in the transition to digital, and we must maintain this momentum. And why? This is not a nice to have. We know that securing radio's digital future is critical, fundamental for listeners, for broadcasters, and for society. These are turbulent times, and radio is reliable, radio is trusted, radio proves security, and provides security, And it's not just me or WorldDAB saying this. We are delighted to welcome Luka Đurić do it? Yes, of AER, Association of European Radios, and Edita Gutlakova from the EBU. We want to bring together broadcasters and all partners of the sector to secure the future of broadcast radio. Working together, we can send one message to anyone and everyone around the world who needs to hear it. Broadcast radio must endure. For automakers, radio must remain prominent. We make no apologies for repeating this message loud and proud. It remains our mission to position DAB+ as the free-to-air broadcast backbone for radio's digital future. And we hope that after today, you will be echoing this when you get home. That way, we can and will maintain this momentum as we move into 2025 and beyond. And finally, let me place on record our thanks to everyone who makes this event possible. To the project office team for putting together such an exciting and informative program today. And last night's dinner too. The Esplanade Hotel was beautiful. And what a show from the hearts of Zagreb as well, and of you. And thank you to the steering board and our working groups for their hard work on support throughout the year. Here's to achieving great things and maintaining the momentum together in the next 12 months. And also, congratulations to Lindsay Cornell, who received our award for outstanding service for a remarkable second time. This recognizes his leadership of the technical committee and his work on the ASA specifications. We are putting the spotlight firmly on our friends in Croatia and their exciting media market today. Alongside Luka and Alexandra from Bravo Kids, we are honored to be joined by their by the Director of Directorate for Media and Development of Culture and Creative Industries, Jasna Villa. I'm having a little bit of difficulties with all the name pronunciation, I'm sorry. Let me thank our host, OIV, for inviting us and making us so welcome. I'd like to ask their CEO, Mate Botica, to join me up on stage and say a few words.
Thank you, Jackie. So thank you, Jackie. Thank you for this nice introduction in the summit and myself. So, good morning, everyone, and I wish you all very welcome to Zagreb. It is very nice to see so many familiar faces in front of me and also many new ones, which only means that this topic is really interesting and, let's say, hot. Radio is an important medium that is followed daily by a significant part of the population, and on average it is listened to for several hours a day in various situations. It is one of the most powerful communication tools with a unique ability to reach the widest audience and the most trusted and most consumed medium. However, it is everything, including the media world, trusted and most consumed medium. However, as in everything, including the media world, digitalization has finally reached the radio, whose progress in Croatia is being taken care of by OIV, which is something I'm very proud of. In cooperation with Croatian Regulatory Agency for Network Activities and the Agency for Electronic Media, OIV launched a test DAB+ transmission in Croatia in November 2017 with the aim of promoting a new digital radio platform. In the first year of broadcasting, it was broadcast from only 4 locations. Entering the second year of experimental transmission, the coverage area was increased by 20% by extending the network. From then until today, there is constant work on increasing the coverage, and it is currently stands at high 97%, while the coverage of highways, that is also very important, is 93%. Despite the fact that the coverage of Republic of Croatia with the digital DAB+ signal is extremely high, OIV continues to upgrade the network. The installation of the equipment started at the end of August, and the work was finished in October. The digital terrestrial radio network was reached by 9 new locations, which will continue to optimize it. Considering the wide range of services it provides, DAB+ is much more than a digital audio program. Through DAB+, listeners get radio signal reception without interference, the possibility of a larger and simpler choice of programs with clear sound and additional textual, graphic, and video data related to the audio content, such as album covers, song, and artist information, electronic program guide, and so on, and all without internet cost and completely free for users. It should also be noted that DAB+ technology is in line with the National Development Strategy for Green and Digital Transition due to a significant reduction in electricity consumption and CO2 emissions. The long-term goal of the European Union, and Croatia as well, is to become climate neutral in less than 30 years. DAB+ is the solution that consumes the least energy for listening to the radio. It requires a smaller number of transmitters, and energy consumption does not increase with the rise of the number of listeners, like with streaming. Lower energy consumption is the most important contribution to the protection of the nature. Reducing the emission of greenhouse gases and the carbon footprint achieves a more sustainable, so-called green broadcasting. Likewise, research has shown that there is significant reduction in non-ionizing radiation per transmitter locations. I'm sure that we will hear much more today and that we will be part of many interesting sessions. So once again, I wish you all a very successful day, and once again, welcome to Croatia and welcome to Zagreb in the name of OIV. Thanks.
Thank you, Mate. Well, thank you, Mate, so much for your support for DAB+ and for making us so welcome here. And to everyone, enjoy this summit. Have a great day today. Enjoy every minute and share experiences with each other. And I'd love to talk to you in the coffee breaks and the lunch. And it always goes too quick. So I hope you enjoy every second. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline and Mate, for those insights and for sharing some of your thoughts and progress over the coming year and decades. Now, I'm delighted to welcome Jasna Vaniček-Fila, Director of Directorate for Media and Development of Cultural and Creative Industries. She'll be giving us an inside look into Croatia's media landscape and the key role that DAB+ plays in it. Please join me in welcoming Jasna.
Dear President of the WorldDAB, Jacqueline Bierhorst, respected members of the Assembly of the World Digital Radio Organization, respected radio professionals, dear guests, it is my pleasure to greet you on behalf of the government of the Republic of Croatia and the Ministry of Culture and Media, Minister Obuljen Koržinek, and express my satisfaction that you are holding your most important annual meeting in 2024 in the Republic of Croatia, country that has many radio broadcasters and radio stations and whose citizens love to listen to the radio. Halo, halo, ovdje Radio Zagreb. Hello, hello, this is Radio Zagreb. Will forever remain written in the history of the development of radio in Croatia. Namely, on May 15, 1926, those very words were broadcast from the Sljeme transmitter, and then Radio Zagreb developed from radio station Zagreb to today's Croatian radio television. We all, including young people, trust radio as one of the first mass media, so its role in media literacy, which the Ministry of Culture and Media supports year after year, is of great importance. Because of the fact that radio is trusted, as well as the fact that it is necessary to continuously advocate for the preservation of the culture and heritage of each country, that we introduce the obligation to protect the Croatian cultural identity by increasing the quota of Croatian music. In the last 2 years, more and more countries are relying on digital radio and are starting to introduce new digital programs. Today, we have 162 radio stations broadcast in Croatia. Among them are 11 FM, analog, and 3 DAB plus public service radio program in the Croatian radio television. There are also 9 DAB plus programs from commercial broadcasters. Soon, we expect new public tenders and even more DAB plus programs because the territory, as we have heard, the territory of the Republic of Croatia is even 97% covered by DAB plus signal. At the beginning of 2017, that is 7 years ago, the first digital max was filled with 18 experimental radio programs. Experimental broadcasting lasted for 4 years, and now the Agency for Electronic Media grants concessions for digital radio DAB+. Since 2015, FM radio broadcasters have started to recover from the global economic crisis, as we know, of 2008. With the arrival of COVID-19 since January 2020, the total media and thus radio revenues have slowed down, and in other countries around the world, and there is a new decline in radio revenues. As our government at that time was involved in helping numerous industries, including those in culture and entertainment, which COVID almost left without audiences, without concerts, without plays, exhibitions, and thus income, they led to the fact that digital radio was not one of the priority. For the past 3 years, we no longer have free frequencies in FM. For broadcasters in DAB+, those business people who, despite all the difficulties, want to deal with digital radio have been contacting us. As a member of the European Union, one of whose important goals is climate neutrality, the reduction of electricity consumption and greenhouse gases, the Republic of Croatia will certainly support the further development of digital radio. We know that DAB+ radio consumes 85% or even 7 times less electricity to transmit program than FM radio, and that alone is reason enough to support the further development of DAB radio. As a part of the National Recovery and Resilience Plan, the Republic of Croatia has provided more than 30 million euros for the digital transformation of the cultural and creative industries, and we believe that this measure, in which radio broadcasters are eligible applicants, will also be used for their transformation and operation on the single digital market. The Ministry of Culture and Media supports the further development on digital radio, taking into account the wide range of possibilities it offers, a greater number of general and of specialized channels that undoubtedly influence the variety of media. In the coming year, we expect a lot of work because due to European legislation and changes in the media landscape, the drafting of the Media Act awaits us, and it will have to take into account the new media environment and new ways of broadcasting programs. Once again, thanks you for organizing this important meeting in the Republic of Croatia, and I wish you much success in work and in the continuation of this conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jasna. It's so exciting to hear how much development and progress is going to be in Croatia. I'm really excited to see such a positive future in the country for DAB+. Next, we'll hear from Hervé Godechot, member of Arcom and head of its Radio and Digital Audio Working Group. He will discuss Arcom's recently published white paper on radio and provide insights into France's digital broadcasting strategy, which targets a major shift to digital by 2033. Please welcome Hervé.
Thank you very much. Good morning, all. I'm particularly pleased to see you all again and to be invited to speak before you. My heartfelt thanks to WorldDAB and its president, dear Jacqueline Bierhorst, and its French representative, dear Jean-Marc Dubreuil, for this invitation. Especially as I approach the end of my term in a few weeks. This is likely the last time I will speak at WorldDAB as a member of Arcom. I'm therefore even prouder to present to you in broad strokes the French white paper on radio. This project was initiated by the president of Arcom, Roch-Olivier Mestre, and I had the honor of leading it with a project team that worked for over a year on its drafting. We conducted hours of hearings and meetings across Europe to seek inspiration, gathering and analyzing data, resulting in this document of 150 pages, which I hope will serve as a roadmap for the entire French radio in the years to come. First, we aim to assess the economic and technological state of the radio sector, particularly in light of the competition from digital media and evolving usage patterns. Last year, I spoke to you about this very dynamic sector comprising over 1,000 radio stations, which is favored by nearly 38 million daily listeners. I also described a radio landscape that has been weakened by competition from digital media. A recent study we conducted with the Ministry of Culture reveals that the long-term decline in radio advertising revenue is set to accelerate in the coming years. There will be no improvement. Meanwhile, production costs are rising, particularly due to inflation, increasing electricity prices, and the dual costs of FM and DAB+ broadcasting. Among the observations regarding usage trends, digital occupies a significant place. On-demand listening continues to grow, helping to attract or regain an audience that has drifted away from the medium, while linear listening via IP offers a new mode of broadcasting and a new way for radios to connect with their listeners. Currently, 80% of radio listening is via FM and DAB+, and 20% via IP. However, IP has seen a 63% increase of over 5 years. One truth emerges. If DAB+ fails to capture hertz and years, the decline in FM audiences, particularly among young people, will benefit only IP. This risk leading to a future where IP becomes the predominant or even exclusive mode of broadcasting. The consequences, for listeners, this would mean implicitly giving up free radio and anonymous listening. For broadcasters, they would trade technical providers for intermediaries who will interpose themselves between radios and their audiences, imposing their rules on commercial relationships, media visibility, and data collection. That's why the white paper on radio advocates a beneficial transition for the entire FM sector to DAB+. It's not about DAB+ versus FM, nor against IP, but rather DAB+ for the sovereignty of broadcaster over their mode of transmission while maintaining a fair balance between waves and the internet, with DAB+ providing a renewed listening experience with quality sound and modern ergonomics. Having established this assessment and recommendation, we decided to chart a course with a method and timeline to follow for ensuring this transition, which must not come at anyone's expense, but rather for the benefit of all and must involve everyone. To begin, we established 5 prerequisites for a smooth transition to all digital: strengthening DAB+ coverage, which will reach nearly 65% of the population by the end of the year. FM coverage is over 85%. Aligning DAB+ FM planning to ensure DAB+ allocations match FM broadcasting areas, allowing radios to continue tapping into local advertising markets and preserving their audience bases. Raising awareness of DAB+, because how can we invite listeners to switch to DAB+ if they don't know it exists? And for the same reasons, achieving a high level of household equipment. Currently, 1 in 4 French people claims to have DAB+, a figure that needs adjusting since it doesn't account for many listeners who are unaware they are listening via DAB, especially in cars. Hence the necessity of promoting DAB+, that I just mentioned. This equipment rate is steadily increasing thanks to mandatory installations in new vehicles, but we also need to address the market for fixed devices. Finally, achieving a minimum audiences share in digital, with digital encompassing both DAB+ and IP. In addition to these 5 prerequisites, we have outlined 4 foundations for the action plan. 1, ongoing diagnostics of the strengths and weaknesses of the radio digitalization process. 2, gradual implementation of actions with a clear timeline. 3, shared responsibility among the industry, the regulator, and the public authorities. In short, there will be no abrupt or unilateral shift to all digital. This must be constructed collaboratively through dynamic and shared dialogue without wasting time, but also without leaving anyone behind, involving everyone. All stakeholders in the transformation must play their part. And 4, finally, a common and realistic ambition is essential. As I mentioned, the major innovation in this white paper on radio is a proposal of a timeline structured in 2 phases. A preparation phase, which should be dedicated to creating the conditions and favorable environment for transition. This phase has already begun and should run from 2024 to 2027. The second phase is the actual migration phase, extending from 2028 to 2033. The preparation phase requires regulation of audio in its entirety and adaptation of the law. Among the actions to be taken, a few examples include making radio advertising more appealing by reforming the legal mention system, which, while highlighting risks associated with poor diets, for example, clutters advertising messages and drives some listeners and advertisers away from radio. Modernizing the status of audio service provider, which currently does not apply to internet radio aggregators. Adjusting specific anti-concentration rules in line with the audio landscape of the digital age. The preparation phase should also provide the opportunity to establish indicators to measure adherence to DAB+, awareness, equipment levels, audience by mode of transmission, and broadcasting costs. We need to direct resources towards improving DAB+ coverage, aligning local DAB+ layers with FM and consider allocating additional channels, simplify rules to expedite deployment, for example, by facilitating the transition from one allocation to another within the same area without necessarily undergoing a reversion and new application process. Identify white areas, assess experiments in overseas territories. Several are currently underway in Martinique and Réunion. More resources for DAB+ means fewer for FM. Thus, we believe it's necessary to seize the search for new frequencies within 2 years, as they are becoming increasingly scarce. Moreover, Arcom wishes to be able to freeze frequencies returned by a radio switching to exclusive DAB to protect it from opportunistic competitors. Finally, the preparation phase involves increasing the promotion of DAB+ equipment and listening through advertising campaigns and a marketing plan. But it also entails, above all, the creation of a steering committee, bringing together all industry players, manufacturers and distributors, the regulator, and public authorities. The association Together for DAB+, in French, Ensemble pour le DAB+, its president, Charles-Emmanuel Bon, is here, dedicated to promoting DAB, seems the most suitable structure evolving its purpose, statutes, and membership. Arcom can no longer be the only driver of transformation. The future belongs to all and must be built by all. This last measure was inspired by some of our more advanced European neighbors. To roll out the actual transition phase from 2028, we set targets: a 70% equipment rate and a minimum of 50% digital audience by 2033. These targets, again, were informed by the experience of our European neighbors. Thanks. To achieve this, we must allocate resources to meet the objectives. A temporary and decreasing financial aid from the state for dual broadcasting to avoid allowing radios to settle into an FM DAB system. Reducing white areas with the help of local authorities, a new planning approach for DAB, and finally, a gradual and dynamic phase-out of FM with public assistance for re-equipping the most vulnerable households if necessary. According to the roadmap established by the White Paper on Radio by 2033, DAB+ coverage will be equivalent to that of FM today. All radios on DAB will have onboarded their listeners and advertisers. FM will be deserted to the great benefit of broadcasters and distributors. But 2033 is a target date. It's not a command nor a decision, it's a wish. We must adopt a pragmatic approach considering the evolution of equipment, usage, coverage, and audiences. However, taking a progressive and shared approach doesn't mean moving slowly. The faster we move, the better. The longer we wait, the more listeners will shift from FM to IP listening. So there's no time to waste. In conclusion, we have one last question to resolve. Are we heading towards a total or partial phase-out of FM? Once again, the future will tell. We cannot rule out the persistence of residual packets where no technical solution exists. This is the case in Norway. But that must remain the exception. We must transition from individual dynamics to a collective dynamic of co-constructing the shift to DAB+ and phasing out FM in everyone's interest. We need for regular review, and we need to prevent reallocation of FM frequencies. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Hervé, and thank you for sharing such a comprehensive plan and the pragmatic approach. I think something we can all take away and practically learn from. So we're moving on now to a panel discussion where we'll focus on exactly how society, listeners, and broadcasters all benefit from securing our digital radio future. Joining us on the panel are Jacqueline Bierhorst from WorldDAB, Luka Juric from the Association of European Radios, and Edita Kudlikova from the European Broadcasting Union. And moderating the session will be Bernie O'Neill, Project Director of WorldDAB. Please join us on stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Aradna.
You're here?
And we just have a seat. I've been working at WorldDAB for 10 years plus, let's just say. And since 2014, WorldDAB's membership has grown by 45%. So that's a testament to the growth of DAB and to the sustained interest in DAB as a technology. Our members are from right across the broadcast radio industry. That's commercial and public broadcasters, network operators, governments, regulators, and manufacturers. Now, 40% of our members are from the automotive sector. And that is why WorldDAB is perfectly poised to host this conversation today, and specifically on a conversation about the future of broadcast radio in a very rapidly evolving industry and ecosystem. And I'm Bernie O'Neill, the Project Director of WorldDAB. I'm delighted to be joined by our top-notch panel this morning. We have Edita Kudlikova, who's Head of Radio at EBU. We have Jacqueline Bierhorst, President of WorldDAB. And we have Luka Juric, who's the Vice President of the Association of European Radios. And I'd like to start first, well, I think what we're going to look at today is two aspects of radio. We say a lot that radio's critical, and we talk a lot about collaboration. So what we're going to do is we're going to look a little bit beneath what do we actually mean when we say those words a lot, and what are we actually doing about it. So Edita, I'd like to start with you. You're the head of radio and you work a lot on advocacy for radio, and that's on distribution and connected screens and dashboards, etc. So given the importance of uniting broadcasters to speak with one voice, how does EBU see the role of public broadcasters in broadcast radio's evolution in the digital age?
Thank you very much, Bernie, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very pleased to join this panel. We believe that, I think we have heard in all the opening remarks that radio is very important. People love it, and we have just seen the numbers. From our research, it's clear that 82% of people in Europe listen to radio every day. It's not a small number, I think. It's almost everyone listens to radio during some part of the day. In order to keep that, in order not to lose that muscle to be everywhere and to be taken for granted to be everywhere, I think we need to work together. It has to be public service radios together with the commercial radios, especially on the distribution. I don't think it's only our job or it's only commercial radios' job. I think we have to do it together. On the side of the technical distribution, and especially the distribution in the car, we have developed it's a set of guidelines that's called the Connected Car Playbook. My colleague Thomas Grandwood will talk about it a lot more in the afternoon, and whoever is interested, please talk to Thomas because he knows every detail of it. And that's something that we don't bring as an EBU guideline. I think it's something that should really be brought in as radio's guideline.
Great. Jackie, moving on to you. With this rapid evolution of radio content distribution, well, how would you say that WorldDAB collaborates across the industry to ensure that DAB+ remains a first competitive choice for broadcasters in their distribution strategy?
Well, first let me say that it's wonderful that we're here together on stage with commercial broadcasters and public broadcasters united, and keeping in heart the distribution. It's always like content is king, and I always answer distribution rules. So it is, and it might be the other way around as well. WorldDAB has working groups. As we've seen, we have automotive working group for many years, user experience guidelines. And what we do is what you see here is we try to bring everybody together. That's our main thing in driving things forward. All stakeholders involved, even the Americas where DAB+ is not there, but HD or otherwise, it is involved in the user experience guidelines, so that if OEMs try to make a radio in their dashboards, that we can give them a set of rules that are actually including everything that has to do with broadcasts in any form. And so I think the most important thing what we do is bringing all stakeholders together and facilitating the information, sharing the information, learn from each other, and making sure that we don't forget the figures Edita just said, that more than 80% of people listen daily to the radio. It's enormous. And I know there's other audio out there that is interesting. But that's what we are on the barricades for with WorldDAB. It's linear radio right in the hearts of people. And you can do that easily, as Hervé also said, through broadcast next to IP.
Okay, great. Luca, we've been wanting to have AER join one of our panels for a while, so we're really delighted that you're here with us today. And looking at your priorities, we could see that it's media pluralism and ensuring a secure access for radio on air and online. So how do you envisage the role of DAB and FM alongside these newer online technologies?
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I mean, to begin with what Dita and Jackie just said, it's important for us all to work together. That's the main goal in achieving any of the goals in the future. Concerning the radio button in the car, concerning the smart speakers and everything, what's connected with the broadcasting. But representing the commercial radios, more or less around 6,000 commercial radios within the Europe. We do have this commercial view of looking at the things. So we see radio as a hybrid solution. So radio of just one distribution is not possible, and it shouldn't be possible in the future. If you look from the ears of the listeners, they just want to press the button, and the technology, what's behind the button, is really not a problem. It's not their issue. That's the issue we should take care of. But their aim is to get the best and the strongest signal at the time and the content that they want, so they can decide on which station they want to choose, but to be choosable in the car, during the running, or during their smart speakers at home or at the work. Basically, what will bring us to that point is two things that the ladies just mentioned. That's collaboration, so working together, and lobbying together also on the European level.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what you ask, the platform and the DAB, it's not for us if or no, it's how, and it's all together.
Okay, great. Edita, so you mentioned this EBU playbook, and I know that a lot of the people in the room are members of WorldDAB and indeed working within the WorldDAB Automotive Working Group, and they're probably thinking, but what is this playbook, and how is it different to what WorldDAB's been doing with the user experience guidelines? I think it'd be really interesting, because I know that you can explain quite clearly the difference between the two and how they're both complementary.
Thank you for this question, Bernie. I will be very happy to say it a little bit more in detail. So we are not trying to replace or ignore anything that has already been done. I think the playbook is really built as a guideline on everything that has brought together in the knowledge, the experience, the discussions. What we felt before Thomas and the team started working on the guidelines was that we basically were aiming towards the same direction, but not necessarily saying exactly the same things. And we feel that whatever we want to do, as Luca mentioned, if it's legislation, if it's high-level discussions, because we feel this is important for this topic, we need to do it on national level and we need to do it on European level. We also need to talk with the same language, and we need to aim to the same thing. And I think that the playbook is an attempt, or is a set of guidelines that if everyone starts saying that we should collaborate around the area of terrestrial broadcasting, around the area of IP, and around the area of voice, and be united in that. I think it'll be easier for the whole industry, including car manufacturers, solution providers, etc., to be clear on what we need. So it's not everybody saying something different, but everybody saying the same thing.
Okay, so it's really underscoring that one voice united.
Exactly.
And it's complementary. Great, thanks for that. I think that's useful for everybody to know that. Jackie, what would you say is a priority for WorldDAB to ensure that DAB is adopted both in Europe and beyond Europe?
I think it's echoing a little bit what I just said on making sure that we spread the word on everything we do and align it, like we're doing now, with the message. So, of course, WorldDAB is based on DAB, which is a part of a total digital infrastructure, like voice, like IP, and like DAB. It's all combined digital radio. And our work as WorldDAB is making sure that everybody around the globe where it is of relevance, because you can't always be the relevant solution, but there where in countries it is of relevance, and that number is growing, that we bring out the message. And we give good reports, like we do with Edison Research, for example, showing that people actually really care about radio and that it's different from podcast. It's different sorts of audio. Most of the time, new things are more into the minds of people, but older things can be very relevant, and that's what radio is. And I think that is a message that WorldDAB for broadcast over the air is a very important thing to do. So being on the barricades and also making sure that people understand that once you go, you can do it together, FM and DAB+. We've heard here that through it's greener, so you can decide to switch off FM as a country when you're ready for it. And if not, don't. So making that kind of messages, showing that it's growing the pie, that you re-energize the advertising spend for commercial radio when you introduce DAB+. That it's not like, oh my, it's going to narrow. No, it's growing. We can show cases like that.
Yeah. And Luca, I know that you mentioned when we were preparing this session that from your experience of working in other policy areas that it's so important for broadcast radio to have that united voice.
Yeah,
otherwise
sure. I mean, in any form. And speaking now on DAB, and if you just take the example of, it was already mentioned today, and I'm really happy to hear it during the day about the Switzerland case. This is, in the opinion of the commercial side of the European radios, one of the models that could be used for increasing or speeding up the implementation of DAB, because they will start with a switch off for only public broadcasters, and the public broadcasters will take, so to say, the whole market, or try to take the whole market out of on the new platform, remaining the commercial ones on the FM. From the point of the FM, it's pretty obvious that we want to cut as much as possible our costs, because we're only addicted to the money that comes from the commercial sector. So if you have two additional or one additional cost for your new distribution, it's a major thing on your balance sheet. So that's the reason why we should really take the best of the experiences from the Europe also, when I'm now talking about Croatia. But I'm glad to hear that in France and the other, that's the right way to go. I mean, to have a clear vision what's the direction of the government, of the ministry, or of the agencies connected with the distribution is, and then we will all have an easier path, because we'll know how to plan our costs and
well, it sounds like you have a clear path from Jasna Fila this morning was very pleasantly clear on a very clear path for a future for digital broadcast radio in Croatia. So how do you think that what would help broadcasters in Croatia to migrate to DAB+? Have you any thoughts on what might help encourage them, and what they're afraid of, and what might help them to make that migration?
Saying now or covering the commercial part also, as I already mentioned, the costs, or planning the costs is always the biggest problem, because you have the same cake from which you have to pay two distribution channels, and none of them is a small amount. So there are some good experiences from Europe where they started, for example, to 100% of FM costs a year. They were skipping to 20% for DAB and 80% for FM, staying within those costs, and then within 5 years trying to reschedule a date. But it's just a matter of speaking. And I mean, Jasna mentioned almost 100 years ago we heard the first sentence on the Croatian radio, and then we only had 3 receivers in the Zagreb, in the city. So every new technology and every new needs some time, and we just need to take time and to speak, and then everything will come at the end.
Exactly. Okay, we maybe have a minute or two for any questions in case anybody has a question for this panel or any of the other speakers who spoke this morning, but we're almost out of time. So just in one line, this radio is critical and collaboration. What would you say to that, Edita? What message would you like our audience to take away today?
It's essential. I think if we don't collaborate, especially on the advocacy and on the distribution, nobody will succeed.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Jackie?
I can only echo that. Undescribed. So that's collaboration already. One message.
Okay, and Luca, any final
I would
word?
say with a bright future for the radio. I mean, we heard what the potential radio has and how the listeners and the shares are jumping, especially during and after the COVID. People want to have information, and they want to have good music and known voices, despite all other possibilities on the market. And I'm pretty sure that those two things, so the truthful information and the good feeling, will leave the radio in the cars, and all other speakers included.
Thank you, Luca. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Edita. Well done. Oh, we have one question over here.
Can I have a microphone? Oh, yes, thank you. Well, my name is Rinka Vrabec-Moses. I'm editor-in-chief of first DAB radio with national concession, which is Radio Nacional. In 2 years' time, we invested lots of money into equipment, especially in people, because we created a full program fulfilling its public purpose, which means we cover politics, culture, news, science, ecology, Europe, everything. And the problem that I think that people from OEV already know about, and also people from the Ministry of Culture, and I'm sure that Mr. Đurić also knows about it, is that in those 2 years' time, nothing was done for promotion of DAB plus radio in Croatia. So 99% of people in Croatia have absolutely no clue what DAB plus is. And that is a problem, because after 2 years' time, there is absolutely no revenue. Advertising agencies do not want to talk to you because they do not recognize us on the market. And if you are broadcasting only on DAB Plus without FM, then you have absolutely no chance, because we are in unequal position on media market. So that's a problem. If the state promises that they will help us and that they are interested in digitalizing radio sector, and if at the same time OEV invests lots of money in building transmitters all around Croatia and nobody uses them, well, that's a problem. So I don't see a purpose. There is, there is a doubt from our side that there is a pressure from people holding, from monopoly, from those holding FM frequencies in Croatia, on institutions not to switch on DAB+. So I don't see a strategy, I don't see a plan, and I don't see a way to survive until 2033. Because if we want to keep this quality of program which we have, it's completely impossible.
Right.
I mean, you cannot do it. So I don't see a plan in Croatia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A lot of that sounded familiar, Jackie, in a market that's in its early stages. And I know that you're our expert on marketing and promotion. And given what you know of where Croatia is in its stage of DAB rollout, what would you say to this lady?
Yes, thank you for your collaboration on this. It's not really a question, as a shout out to help. And when there's a shout out of help, I think it is good to start or to continue the conversations that are going on between your company and OIV. and the government to make sure that you start to understand each other's needs. And it was said before, when you start working together, first you have to have, and it takes time. DAB+ just doesn't come overnight as a success. The rollout needs to be technically viable, so the 5 C's come into place. Communication is a very important thing, but you need to have coverage, you need to have content, and there it can hurt. If the coverage is not yet good enough and you have content already, and you start communicating and people start using it because they become aware, it can be a not nice experience. So therefore, it all adds up when you have to have coverage, content, consumer devices, cars with DAB+, and communication, and align your communication very well. So I hope by communicating and bringing these parties together, and I would love to do that also in coffee time, to talk and hope to get the angle out and make sure that government support and OIV and commercial broadcasters do find each other. It is possible. I mean, not all of them were friends in the past, but you can become partners on distribution, I'm sure, and in communication.
I think we need to wrap it up with that, but I agree. It's good that we're talking, and it's good to voice those concerns, and the right people are in this room to help navigate those tricky issues. So I think with that, Aradna, do you want us to stay here, or?
Please stay. It'll just be a couple of minutes. Thank you so much to our panel for that really engaging discussion. I know it's always tough to put an end to these discussions, but it's not the end because we're about to go into a break. So please do come and find each other, and I hope you all get to meet. Huge thanks to our coffee break sponsor, AVT. Do remember to visit our exhibitors, and please be back here for 11 a.m. for our next session on DAB+ transitions that are happening all around the world. Thanks so much and enjoy coffee. Thank you.
Thank you.